When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting here on a Monday night. What's good?
What's good? Yes. Not a whole lot. It's a brand new week. A lot of wrestling to talk about. So let's go.
All right. Well, let's go into what's coming up this week, Mr. Ting. There is lots to discuss. Earlier tonight, we just put up an interview with Big E that we have up on the site. So there's about a half-hour interview right now with Big E talking about a new project that he's involved with. That includes Andreas Hale, friend of the site. Our Heroes Rock. So if you want to hear all about this, they're doing this Kickstarter campaign, and they had a tremendous first day. I think that their goal will be likely met by April 12th, but it's a very cool project that they have put together. They have a trailer out on it. It's like this animated series that would focus on different figures, and just going across the gamut. So they're trying to fund the pilot, and I found it to be a really interesting project. So we chatted about quite a lot in this interview about everything involving George Floyd last summer, his decision to wear the armbands on television, taking a knee with Kofi Kingston. We got into a lot of stuff, his involvement, how he handles social media in this day and age, in this climate. And as well, we touched upon Brody Lee as well, who he was extremely close with. So I was really happy with this interview. If people want to check that out on the main feed.
That's a great get, John. And I look forward to checking it out.
This week, we've got the return of our Rocky Balboa review with the 2006 resurrection of the franchise. That's dropping on Tuesday for Cafe members, and our good pal Ed Boxler will be returning. He was part of the Rocky IV review, so we will chat about Rocky Balboa. Rocky versus Mason the Lion Dixon, a.k.a. Antonio the Magic Man Tarver.
I'm happy to do this one, especially coming off of Rocky V last month. From what I gathered, this one is one of the really good ones, so I'm looking forward to it.
Other things on the Cafe this weekend, we're going to have our usual live shows after Dynamite and SmackDown. On Sunday, it's Rewind Division, 2 episodes left, so Wai and WH will be chatting about that. We'll also have a post-show after Castle Attack discussing the 2 New Japan events that are happening this weekend. So a lot of stuff on the Cafe, and I also want to make mention that the new Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure, they'll be handling the Eddie Guerrero documentary from 2004 that the WWE put out. This was prior to his passing. It's a really excellent documentary that I haven't watched in quite some time, but they are going to be looking at that as well as some of the select matches on that DVD, and joining them, Neil, our man, Neil.
Oh my, awesome, cool. That's all great. Of course, our friends at Up Next have Deep Impact coming out on Tuesday, Shot in the Dark on Wednesday, Up Next as usual on Wednesdays. I also wanted to direct everybody's attention, if you're a fan of the Wellness Policy, Jordan Goodman and Lord of the Cord Phil Chertok will be hosting their little own group chat on the Discord Thursday, 3 o'clock, which is the approximate time that we usually have the Wellness Policy. But this week, they'll be doing their own little discussion about meditation. Jordan and Phil are practitioners, and Phil in particular wanted to, take the time to kind of discuss what meditation has done for him. So if people looking for a bit of an introduction, even I think Jordan might be leading people through a group meditation at some point. Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern at postwrestling.com/Discord.
Will the cowbell be part of the meditation?
I some form of percussion instrument I think will be there. The cowbell, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe that's a special request you can make.
You can find out. Okay, well, the whole schedule's up at postwrestling.com. A lot of great stuff this week. You can check that out, as well as postwrestlingcafe.com. Bunch of news items to go through. First and foremost is the announcement on Monday that after a year and a half, NXT is going to start airing live in Canada on Sportsnet 360 beginning this week. So when NXT moved to the USA Network in October of 2019. It did not go live here in Canada. Instead, it's been very difficult for Canadians to keep up with the NXT product. Your options have been wait for the show to be uploaded to the WWE Network, watch a 1-hour edited version of the show on Friday nights at 7 prior to SmackDown, or seek out illegal means to keep up with NXT. And I am curious what this whole year and a half, what kind of toll it's taken on the NXT fan base in Canada. They will be going head to head with AEW on TSN2, and they are relatively comparable networks. You have to go to a higher tier on your cable package to get Sportsnet 360 and TSN2, and this will start.
But anybody who gets Raw or SmackDown will now get NXT live on Wednesday.
Yes, if you have Sportsnet 360, you'll now get NXT. It's on the exact same network as the other two, and Main Event that they also carry. So, yeah, I think this Wednesday it's actually a rarity in Canada because, as we've mentioned many times during the Monday Night War, it wasn't a case of having to choose between two. You never got Raw and Nitro head to head on Monday nights, and that was the case up until this week with NXT and Dynamite.
Yeah, I would assume really by this point, like if you're watching wrestling on a Wednesday in Canada, whether anywhere really in the world, you probably already made up your mind about which show you're committed to, what you're watching. So I do think like there's something to be said about like being able to flip back and forth to see like who has the better show. So at least like people who might be sick of Dynamite or a match on Dynamite or hear about a big thing on NXT in Canada, now they'll be able to flip over just like everybody else.
So that will start Wednesday. Hiromu Takahashi, he had missed Saturday's show for New Japan, and then today, when he didn't work the Cork and Hall show, they announced he has torn his left pectoral muscle, and he's going to be out an estimated 6 months. He is their current junior heavyweight champion, a big blow to that division, losing its champion, and he was set for 2 title matches this week. Not only was he defending the title against El Phantasmo Sunday, but he was also going to be teaming to take on with Bushi to take on and challenge Phantasmo and Ishimori on Thursday at Korakuen Hall for the junior heavyweight tag titles. They will be replaced by El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. So, way we've talked about Hiromu, like he was going to be a big factor all year for New Japan. The idea of him headlining shows and this long plan of having him headline a Tokyo Dome show, this definitely throws a major wrench into the junior heavyweight plans for 2021.
Yeah, really unfortunate. Always unfortunate to hear about, these long layoffs for wrestlers due to injury. But especially somebody like him who came back after a career-threatening neck injury and wrestled for a few months before the pandemic hit. That took away, probably 6 months of his career. And then, had some great matches once he did come back. But now just to be taken out again, it's really, really unfortunate for somebody like him. But, silver lining is that he will be back from an injury like this one. And hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's a serious injury, but obviously nowhere as severe as the broken neck that he sustained in 2018. And they have not made any announcement yet about the title, if they will put in a replacement on Sunday, if they'll hold off and do something with the junior heavyweight title. That is to be determined, but I guess they're going to have to make that decision fairly quickly. So hopefully he makes a full recovery and comes back, but an unfortunate setback for Hiromu Takahashi. Another injury that AEW announced today, and that is Anna Jay is going to miss 6 months due to a shoulder injury. And she had been advertised for the ongoing women's title eliminator tournament. She was going to be taking on Britt Baker on the stream that was going to air tonight, but the shoulder ended up, she could not work. I think the last match she did would have been early January for an episode of Dark, and she was replaced by Maddie Renkowski, who's appeared on Dark several times, losing to Britt Baker tonight. Anna Jay's only 22 years old. Again, a tough timeline when you're hearing 6 months that you're going to be out, but unfortunate for her that she is going to miss out the first half of the year, a little bit more.
Yeah. It again, it always really sucks to be out for that amount of time, but I think, again, looking at the silver lining, it's the fact that she at this point has established herself well enough within the Dark Order, within the show itself as a personality, And I really do feel like, despite not being able to wrestle, I hope that she'd be able to travel or at least like do some sort of on-air segment just to be able to kind of work on that side of wrestling. Because wrestling isn't just, of course, about, what you're doing in ring. For her especially, it's as much about being a part of the Dark Order and being a character. So I hope she could take this time to really focus on that.
That's what I was thinking, that 6 months out doesn't have to mean 6 months away, that she could utilize this time to be present on Being the Elite, to be on television and still have a presence and be there.
Promo.
And exactly, develop that aspect of your game. And it's, especially in this current setup where it's not like you have to be on the road every single week. They're taping every other week. Doesn't mean she has to be there all the time while she's rehabbing. Like this is a more ideal schedule for someone with an injury that still wants to be on television. You can hide that fact and still, it's not like you're going to 3-4 different cities every week, like on a full on WWE schedule.
You're taping 2 shows every time you travel, like you're working every 2 weeks. So hopefully she could still have a role.
Progress Wrestling put out a statement today, and so at the end of January, they taped several shows, which they're now starting to roll out on both their on-demand service and the WWE Network. And in the lead up to this, there had been online a rumor that Paul Robinson had been used as an agent, and this had led to a lot of people questioning Progress online. Was Paul Robinson used for these tapings? And for those not familiar, Paul Robinson was one of many people that was named during the Speaking Out movement. He was named along with several other people from the UK scene by a woman who has since deleted her Twitter account, and this is the same one who had named Marty Scurll, and she had stated about Paul Robinson that while on a personal, emotional level, I find this situation to be a lot less extreme or significant or malicious. It still wasn't right. Relations with a minor are inexcusable. As she had said, she was 16 when she got involved with Paul Robinson. So all weekend long, this became like a pretty prominent story among those following and attached to the UK scene. And Progress put out a statement on Saturday, not acknowledging whether Robinson had worked the tapings or not. On Monday, they finally did put out a statement and confirm that Paul Robinson did work the shows. They ended up taping 5 shows, and he worked as an agent. And they essentially said that the talent was okay with it. And that was largely their statement that they had put out today. We have the full thing up on the site. And, without getting into all of this story, I will say that it was very interesting to see that for Progress, I mean, they had been a group that had stated last summer that they were going to get to the bottom of a lot of this stuff and be transparent. And I think that was their first mistake, was trying to just do this without being transparent from the beginning about this. And this is a story that I think is going to resurface many times. Like all of those names that you heard last summer, a lot of them are going to eventually make their way back into wrestling. For many, that is how they make a living. And in light of any charges being faced or anything like that, you're essentially leaving it to the promotions to police themselves of who they will book and who they will not book. And they will have to weigh that of what kind of backlash are we going to get for using said performer versus the value we see in that person. And over the weekend, they realized that, it was essentially the public outcry of Progress feeling they had to address this. And again, I just think that this is going to return many, many times over the next months, even years. There will be maybe some that we never see come back to the industry, but I just feel there's going to be plenty more that promotions are going to eventually want to book because they see a value in these people, whether they have allegations attached to them or not.
Yeah, certainly. I think so. Without really being able to speak like I'm a part of like that scene who goes to these shows or even watches Progress on a regular basis, it's hard for me to maybe describe my own comfort level. But certainly, looking at some of the response just to something like this over the weekend, I mean, the goal right now is to make your audiences feel comfortable consuming your product, and with that comes, I think, a great deal of transparency, maybe above and beyond, what is even expected, to really kind of show that, you know, this is a cool place to be. Like it's safe. I can't really say what the correct answer with anything is, like to what limit. I think they should be transparent, but obviously it wasn't enough this past week.
No. And I mean, it's going to be different circumstances for different individual cases. I think that for a lot of them, it's like if you're talking about wrestlers, well, you're going to advertise them. And in a way, you are kind of leaving it to your audience to determine. We have booked this person, and if we do not sell tickets to an event, and there's going to be more of this, I think, on like the more local independent level where you're talking about a much smaller audience you're drawing from, like they will get that message. I think in this case, like this is not, you're not going to be announcing your agents ahead of time. But I think in this case, I think Progress has learned like the idea of we're going to use this person. And then once we're called upon it, try and avoid, or at least not address it in a timely fashion on Saturday when they were being called upon. I think they get that message. And I think it's unfair to put the talent in the situation that I don't know if, like, I remember the story that Bret Hart had in his book where they're all the talent. I think it was talking about like the travel at the time and just different issues. And Vince McMahon asked the locker room of, well, who has a problem with this? And Bret and I think one other person put their hands up. But then after the meeting, it was all this other talent coming up to Bret saying, oh, thanks for saying something. We just didn't want to speak up. Like that's the wrestling industry. I think it's very difficult to just rely on the talent here, that they're not necessarily going to want to rock the boat if they feel a promotion wants to utilize someone. So it's very difficult to discuss a lot of this stuff, but this is going to be the fallout of everything that happened last summer, is that in time, there are going to be people that maybe last summer were deemed untouchable that promotions are going to be looking at and stating like, we see a value in this person. Has that been enough time? And that it's when you're talking about, outside of any kind of regulatory body that's going to issue suspensions or any kind of like, what is the time period? Is it people have lifetime bans from wrestling? Is it a certain amount of time? It's all subjective, and it's all different between different cases based on the level of severity. Like it's all, I think, severe in some way, in some fashion, but there's going to be degrees of it as well. So I'm sure that the BWE crew will be talking about the story quite a lot on their next show, but I thought it was important to bring up coming out of the weekend. Another thing from the weekend that I understand you saw, I have not. What did you think of the Sasha Banks edition of the Broken Skull Sessions?
Oh, it was fantastic. I thought it was one of Austin's best. Certainly one of his all his interviews are usually really good, but this one in particular I thought was exceptionally good because Sasha was such a great subject. To me, she just has such a great personality that you don't really get to see when she's playing the character. The character is really good, but like when she's being herself, and I first saw this on Hot Ones, which is the thing that ultimately got her Jon Favreau's attention to cast her on The Mandalorian. She just comes across as somebody who is so fun, yet also vulnerable and incredibly confident. And for somebody at such a young age to be able to kind of have all that, I just watched this whole thing and just, made me realize how much bigger she could be than what wrestling would be able to offer.
That's really interesting. I look forward to watching this at some point. So, yeah, how long is it?
It's about like an hour and a half.
Wow. Okay. So a lengthy Broken Skull session.
Mm-hmm.
Did they drink beer?
Oh, yeah.
No Jack Daniels, just beer?
I think just beer for this one.
All right. Well, there you go. Sasha Banks on the Broken Skull Sessions. You can find out all your news at postwrestling.com, including our world-renowned news updates. There is one up for Monday. Andrew Thompson will be on top of things on Tuesday. He'll also have an interview with Amy Rose from Ring of Honor, and lots of news to find up there, including the latest card for this Sunday when AEW has their Bleacher Report stream, which will feature 2 tournament matches, and they've also added a 6-woman tag, including the return of Maki Ito to the AEW airwaves.
Also wanted to draw some attention to John Cena's Bloodsport reports over the past 2 weeks. Bloodsport 4 and 5, Cena wrote reports on them. Had a chance to watch some of Bloodsport 5. It's a show that continues to catch my attention because it's just so unique, and I thought the main event was a lot of fun. But man, Moxley versus Barnett, we're finally going to get it at WrestleMania weekend.
April 8th, yeah.
Yeah, but Moxley is just like a tremendous ambassador, I think, for all this stuff. He's about to have an incredible couple weeks here, starting with Bloodsport, of course, but then this Friday on NGPW Strong against Kenta, and then a week after that,
Electrified
Revolution.
Barbed Wire. Yeah.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, he's got quite a lot coming up starting this Friday. So, yes, the somewhat jinxed match between Jon Moxley and Josh Barnett. This will be their 3rd try at that match. So, April 8th, it is scheduled to be featured at Bloodsport 6 during WrestleMania week. So let's get into Raw following the Elimination Chamber. John Morrison introduced The Miz, and I think they spent the equivalent of the entire budget they spent during the Performance Center era on The Miz's Pyro.
You know what? A new champion? Come on.
Let's go. We just got the Peacock deal. Just put a dent in that deal with this pyro display. The Miz brings up that he came here 16 years ago, and people thought he'd be fired in 3 weeks. Here he is as a champion, outlasting people like Batista and John Cena. What the hell have they done? And others that just don't measure up, mentioning Bobby Lashley, The Big Show, and Triple H. He's the Babe Ruth of WWE, calling his shot, and everyone's got to have their distinction way. Miz is the only 2-time Grand Slam champion in history on the Raw side. He mentions he's won every major title on Raw multiple times because there's a universal title that I guess has eluded him. 2-time Grand Slam champion with an asterisk, not to include the other major world title.
So what would that entail? Like which title specifically would that entail?
I guess they mean his WWE title is like his world title. He's won both secondary titles. He's won the tag titles. What's the other one? Does the Money in the Bank count? He's won that twice.
Does that count? Would it be
what other titles?
I guess the US, the IC, like, does that count as 2 separate ones? Yeah, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation.
Sure. 2-time Grand Slam champion, sure. Bobby Lashley, and that more just underscores how little, like, all the title reigns mean. It's just, okay. Mm-hmm. Lashley and MVP come out, and they point out that Lashley was not thanked for allowing Miz to cash in, and Lashley says the agreement was he is first in line for a title shot. Miz did promise that, but he never said when, and he just doesn't have time to do a title match. Lashley says, we made a deal, and you have an hour to come to your senses, or else your new reality show is going to be how Lashley sent me to the emergency room, which I think you could get maybe half an episode out of. I don't know if you could get like 8.
I mean, How I Met Your Mother had like 10 seasons or something like that.
Yeah.
You could do a whole backstory, but I don't know how many people would be watching. That sounds more like an A&E show.
Yeah. And then Lashley did the world's weakest. Awesome.
Yeah, I like the way they set up the stakes here for the first hour. I love that they put up a clock after this. You know,
people love clocks. People always love clocks because they want to know what happens at the end of it.
I just like the idea of making somebody anticipate something that they'll deliver afterwards. It just seems like it's such a novel concept.
Mrs. Ultimatum
these days.
Yes.
Yeah, well, whatever. Like, just give me something to look forward to. And I thought they set that up really well here. I thought Miz's, opening promo was, I think, the type of cocky, serious confidence you would expect from the Miz from time to time. And I like the fact that they set this up for 1 hour and not 3 hours, which they could have done. Maybe they should have, honestly.
You have 2 hours and 55 minutes to come to your senses.
Yes.
Oh, So Riddle's with his buddies, the Lucha House Party, and he's talking about Call of Duty Warzone. And he names the eagle on his U.S. belt Travis.
Because he had a friend named Travis who was a complete metalhead.
Oh, I thought it was in honor of the musician because this character has been writing to reach me and has failed continually month after month.
I don't know that one.
Oh, you didn't listen to Travis? Okay.
He's got a scooter now as well.
Oh, he had a scooter. But then he ditched the scooter. I thought he was going to come out on it. Like, the gimmick is he's 12 years old. That's what the character is. He's a 12-year-old stoner.
Man, yeah. Did you know many 12-year-old stoners? It's kind of young, but I guess
I knew it was more so. I knew 13-year-old stoners.
Okay, yeah. So I'm sure we'll see the scooter at some point. It's his thing now.
Maybe he'll come out to Scooter, world-renowned artist.
Take your word for it, man.
Oh, okay.
You know what? You got to post some of these recommendations in the Discord.
Well, perhaps. Riddle and John Morrison for the United States title. They made no explanation as to why John Morrison was getting a United States title shot after last night.
He got pinned, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Lashley doesn't want it, I guess.
He's above it. They had a pretty good match, I thought. Morrison applied this dragon sleeper early on and then flipped him onto the apron and hit a tornillo to the floor. He was clutching his knee, and then Riddle hit a fisherman buster onto the edge of the apron. And we go to break, counting down to Miz's ultimatum. Riddle hit a floating bro to the floor, bridging German, and then Morrison comes back with a one-man Spanish fly. The bro to sleep, followed by a super kick by Morrison. Starship Pain gets stopped, and then he takes him out of the corner from the Starship Pain attempt and hits bro Derek, and he wins in 11 minutes and 4 seconds. I thought this was much better than the kickoff match on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed these two a whole lot in the three-way last night. I thought like they told a really good story of like trying to team up together to take on Bobby Lashley. And I thought that chemistry really continued tonight. I quite enjoyed this match. I think Morrison is way better than his booking suggests. He's the type of wrestler that like would be somewhat like you'd want to use in a video game because his moveset is so distinct from anybody else's. And I thought his style and Riddle's styles like continued to gel really well together here.
Well, he's entering his prime WWE years on Raw because he is 41. So maybe this is they're just getting ready for the big John Morrison elevation now.
It's more doubtful every day, but yeah, maybe at some point.
There's a promo for Rhea Ripley coming soon to Raw.
Yeah, I mean, it's I could never get mad at like some sort of pre-promotion material like this, but it's not like this is a new debut. Like this, she finished second last in the Rumble, and she faced Charlotte at WrestleMania last year. I kind of feel like Ripley's kind of beyond these coming soon vignettes. Like she could have easily stepped in at any point and everybody, I think, would have known who she was. But
you had a really great idea for the pay-per-view. That
it was hardly.
I mean, they're obviously going in a different direction, and they are not doing that. I question what is, how will she be introduced on Raw? Because if she's not linked to Charlotte or Asuka, I think it's like, really, like, what are you doing at that point? Like, it's a big drop after that.
Yeah.
She's going to fight Nia? Like,
like so much talk has been about how, okay, like Ripley had that match with Charlotte last year. She lost and it just kind of began her downward spiral. But I wonder if WWE, like specifically Vince and the main roster, really recognize that as an actual story, or if it's just something like they kind of cooked up with using the circumstances down in NXT. Because her booking this year will really tell us whether or not she'll get any sort of redemption, or if this will just be a completely fresh start that's sort of ignorant of that entire bigger narrative. So, but the entry here, of course, like timing suggests some sort of peak for WrestleMania. So, let's wait and see whether or not she gets a big role. Yeah.
Bad Bunny was showing on SNL with the 24/7 title, and he's hanging out with Damian Priest. And they spot R-Truth hanging out with a referee. R-Truth confuses him for Bugs Bunny, and this greatly upset Damian Priest. He took this as such an insult.
Yeah,
his name is Bad Bunny.
I kind of felt bad for Truth here.
I think everyone did. It's like this is the point where the audience turns on Damian Priest and by default Bad Bunny.
Like, you're not really kidding. Like, I definitely in this episode, if you didn't already feel this way, for me at least, I definitely am turning a bit of a corner on Bad Bunny, where it's starting to get into go away heat territory for me. Number one, I think just the association with the 24/7 title makes you look like
a geek.
Just such a geek. Yeah.
I agree. I think the 24/7 title listen, everyone will talk about, they got the 24/7 title on SNL. If one person that is not watching WWE saw that and wow, he's got a title. Raw's on Monday night. I mean, it's nice, but it's one of those marketing ideas where it's like, oh, they saw me. It's like, dude, if Wai Ting decided that he was going to go into the Thunderdome, okay, with his post-wrestling hat on, oh my God, it's the post-wrestling hat. Dude, no one's finding our show because they saw your fucking hat, even though it's 2 million people on Raw. Not one person is finding our show because they saw a hat that drew them to the show. So it's one of those nice things to say. It's cool for WWE. It certainly doesn't hurt them at all. But don't tell me that it's opening up this audience that the 24/7 title was seen on NBC and that's somehow a bridge to viewership just going through the roof now.
It'll probably get you on the Post Wrestling Instagram. So if you want to pick one of these hats up,
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, my whole point is that this guy does have a cool factor. The 24/7 title somewhat dilutes that cool factor.
And then on top of that, it's like now you have Damian Priest, who really to me came across like a bully here to a guy who everybody loves in R-Truth. It
would have been much better if it was Tozawa in the spot, and I think it would have been much more accepting of Priest. Just again, you wouldn't be booking or scripting Tozawa to call him Bugs Bunny, but if he was just standing down Tozawa, fair play. But R-Truth is a fairly lovable character.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very good for those two today.
But it doesn't matter. There's no crowd to turn on him, so they can do whatever they want. The Miz complains to Adam Pearce about his ultimatum. Miz says there was nothing in writing with Bobby Lashley. And Pearce says, well, you've got to make your decision quickly. That clock is counting down. And Miz pulls out his phone. I don't know who he was texting.
Who was he texting? Who was he calling here? Like, what was this?
I don't know. Braun didn't show up to do any favors for Miz, so that kind of disqualifies him.
Braun was there to make things worse.
Yeah, Braun could have made it a three-way, which, I don't know, you could argue, makes it worse for Miz. So, I don't know. Maybe he was...
Maybe he just, he's addicted to his phone, and it's like when he's nervous, he just, scrolls aimlessly.
He probably just saw the feed update. He probably saw my Big E interview. Dropped right around this time, so...
Must be.
Could have been it. Speaking of, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods versus Mace and T-Bar. Did you notice?
Oh, hold on. You forgot our celebrity endorsement on this show, John. It was Punky Brewster.
I purposely was going to skip this, but I do have it here, that not only did they plug Punky Brewster on Peacock, I've never been so happy to be geo-blocked in this country. They gave us...
I loved Punky Brewster as a kid.
Did you watch Punky Brewster?
Yeah. I didn't watch it when it actually aired, but I watched it on reruns. I mean, that opening theme song is one of my all-time favorites. It was
okay. I know this if people followed this, I'm sure it's got some affinity or attachment to your childhood, but this was never a thing for me.
Yeah, I don't know how big it was really in Canada, but I can't tell you I'll be watching this reboot. But man,
Charlotte and Alexa are going to be on this season, aren't they?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so.
Charlotte and Alexa are on. Okay, interesting, cool. It's no.
I watched this trailer. You could not. I will never watch this show ever again. This thing looked. It's not for me. It's not for me.
It's not for you. It's barely for me either. But I mean, it is for this audience because I think you have to be at least 40 or 50 to remember this shit, and that's who's watching Raw right now. But man, our celebrity cameos.
Oh my god, dude, can they not shoot these better? Could we not just get them to dude, shoot this on your phone at home and we'll just cut to the point of view of your phone. Like,
I mean, they do have the feeds of whatever Zoom camera that they have that they should just be presenting straight up in the cameras. Rather
they're
than
shooting the screens. Like, you could not, they literally had to key them because you would never have been able to know that Freddie Prinze Jr., former WWE writer, is on your screen.
Like, I'm certainly hoping that neither of these two wasted their time putting on makeup for this appearance because, dude, like, this was like shot on, like, man, like a calculator. You know, there's no way you could tell.
Did you catch the sponsor that they dropped here?
No.
Monday Night Raw brought to you by Toyota.
Well, that's a big one.
They've, like, WWE over the last number of years, like, they have greatly elevated their inventory when it comes to advertisers. Like, you're talking, like, you have, like, car sponsorships now.
Yeah.
They're doing very well.
Back. Cars. Sure.
Well, Snickers is a constant. They just love WrestleMania. Reckoning is back with Retribution. And obviously one out between her and Damian Priest's finisher.
You're right. Yeah, they changed the name of the finish. Yes.
They beat down on Kingston. They hit High Justice onto Kingston. This is High Justice.
High Justice, yeah. I think that's a cool name. Don't you?
That's I don't know. It sounds like should be maybe Matt Riddle's finish.
Oh, you're thinking of High Times. That was Chronic's finish.
That was Chronic's. Yeah. Get it, Chronic.
Similar move.
Yeah. And Ali demands they deliver more High Justice. And then Kingston fights back. T-Bar is sent to the floor. The Three Stooges all screw up, running into one another. Trouble in Paradise to Mace. And then a Trouble in Paradise on T-Bar. And Retribution loses after having the match won. 2 minutes, 52 seconds. And this was Ali's breaking point as he just dressed down Retribution for disappointing him and embarrassing him. And he just stormed off. Oh my God, the cracks are being seen in Retribution way.
Everything was going so well.
It was, they were on such a smooth path to dominance.
So, I mean, the idea, I guess, is that Ali is the incompetent one because he really was the one who cost them the win here, but he's blaming everybody else for it, right?
Who cares?
It's been a terrible story so far, and I can't say it's done anybody any favors, including Kofi Kingston and Woods here, who I just continue to be pretty bored by. Ali is sort of teasing some sort of big action that he's about to take, and you know, all I'll say is that this Kofi Ali match that he's been talking about this whole time really feels like it's some sort of pipe dream at this point. I don't think it's happening. I mean, if they didn't do any sort of attack in the lead up in the perfect time to Elimination Chamber, I don't think we're going to get it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it just seemed like such a ready-made story, and I just don't know, like, even a big angle from Ali, I don't know, I think you really have your work cut out for you to grab people's interest back into this. Retribution is done. The best thing for these masked people is to just assume their previous identities and go their separate ways. Like, this is just a dead gimmick, and it's been like that for months.
Do they make it to WrestleMania?
Oh, if they do, they will be struggling and collapsing at the finish line to make it to the Andre Battle Royal. It's just done. It's no fault on them, but this is done. This is just done. Lashley and MVP come out, and it's time for an ultimatum. Pierce asks for Miz's decision, and he just wants more time. That's literally the one thing they could not provide him after this last hour. He brings up all the challenges that are out there, and he says he wants to be at his best when he faces Lashley. So give me a week. Braun Strowman interrupts. He wants a title shot. He says that Pierce and Shane had a vendetta against him. I am far more clarified than Bobby Lashley. And I had to rewind to clarify what the man said because I would not be qualified if I did not properly quote him.
Claire.
They were going to have to have an impromptu clarification match to see who would get the shot next week.
Yeah.
Am I being too mean?
No.
Wow.
This is what we're here for.
Shane McMahon comes out next. 5 years to the day of his return to the company.
5 years already. Wow.
Remember that? 5 years ago he came back?
Did not feel like that long
McMahon
ago.
Appreciation Night. He runs down Braun's neurons, which, I mean, like a sitting duck here to just go after the man's neurons. He says, "You weren't a former WWE champion, dummy. You were a Universal champion. Well, that idea sucked."
It lends maybe some, I don't know, credibility to the idea that maybe the qualified screw-up was intentional because he's supposed to be an idiot.
Oh, okay.
Bad neurons.
Okay, sure. He says, "That idea sucked, former champions. I want a title match tonight." Well, Shane thinks that idea sucks. So instead of a title match, we're going to have Lashley versus Braun, where if Lashley wins, he gets nothing. He gets what he's already promised. If Braun wins, it's a triple threat. So Lashley's just going to have a match for keep busy.
He does have improved chances if Braun isn't in that match.
What if Lashley said, "F off, I've got a deal. I'll see you next week"?
Yeah, I mean, I really think MVP's. Listen, MVP is a great strategist, but man, come on, you got to get these things in written form. You know,
This was on camera as well.
Oh, that's true. I guess that's not allowed to use.
There's evidence. Yeah. Do you think is Braun and Shane is this your Mania direction? Just have one of their crazy fall off high places, do your crazy, I don't know, Shane gets rolled over in an ambulance multiple times.
It seems like it's the most likely candidate right now, doesn't it?
Or they come together as a tag team and fully form Brains and Braun.
Brains and Braun. Yes. Well, that's what this promo would suggest, right?
Maybe we were just setting things up. Let the story play itself out. All these people that watch WandaVision, they just have no patience for good quality storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, it was all the signs are right there. Clarified, qualified, neurons.
Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander took on Grand Metalik and Lince Dorado in a tornado tag match. That was a non-title match. I don't quite know why. It was just pretty much an ability for Benjamin and Cedric to have like a handicap match because they just dump one out and beat on the other. MVP's warning them not to play around with the Lucha House Party, and there was a handspring by Cedric going for the neuralizer, but Dorado grabs him, hits an enziguri off the apron, and then this multiple Revolution DDT followed by a splash off the top by Metalik. That was a very cool sequence. Alexander makes the save. There's a top rope Rana to Alexander, but then Benjamin tosses Dorado into Cedric's flying knee, followed by pay dirt, and they pin Dorado in 5 minutes and 52 seconds. So, not really building challengers, just the champions demolishing the Lucha House Party, but fun while it lasted.
I wasn't a big fan of this tornado tag. I mean, I do appreciate them changing up the tag formula once in a while, but didn't get much flow or drama in this one. I didn't think the action was all that spectacular. This kind of, from this point on, felt like a series of just filler matches for the rest of this Raw.
Dude, we had 9 matches on this show, and a lot of it was just like plug and put into place. Just we're filling time with matches. That's what a lot of this show was. No rhyme or reason for all of this. I had totally forgotten about Benjamin and Cedric as tag champions till they appeared on screen with the titles. Like the Raw tag titles, you don't even think of. You don't even think of this division.
Yeah.
This is the division. The division had a tornado match tonight. Damian Priest against Angel Garza. Bad Bunny is out. And the highlight was Angel Garza has a 3-dimensional rose for his entrance.
Right. The VR rose, yes.
Mm-hmm. What happened to what's her name?
Burnett? Danny Burnett or Debbie Burnett? What's her name?
Demi Burnett. Demi. Yeah. Then there was
his wife, his fiance in real life.
Well, I guess.
Charlie.
Well, there was Charlie, and then wasn't Sarah Schreiber getting flirted with as well for a time?
I don't remember.
He seems he's just going solo now.
This doesn't seem like he's all that great with women.
Well, it's maybe it's an inferiority complex. He projects this, but there's an insecure man inside.
Oh, like sort of a like a some sort of a psychological story. Interesting. Like womanizer actually has like deep rooted insecurities.
Yeah, he's just someone that, I mean, he maybe broke his heart when he was younger, and he's just afraid to commit again, to share his life with another.
That would make a great pro wrestling storyline.
So Garza got in a lot of offense, and he was berating Bad Bunny on the floor. Priest came back. Garza collapsed in the corner. Damian Priest hit the broken arrow for a 2 count. And he goes into the corner. You know, like anyone in a normal fight would do. I think Matt Hughes used to do this. And Bad Bunny distracts Garza, and Damian Priest hit a spinning heel kick off the top. Should be one. I would not be using this for every single television match. I would definitely pace this one for your hips.
Yeah. Well, I suppose like I think when you're starting out, you know, you want to get people's attention. You want to show off what you can do. It's worth sacrificing a few years of mobility.
Well, he hit his finisher, and Tom Phillips goes, he calls that hits the light.
Hit the lights.
Hit the light. Okay, I screwed that one up. Okay, much
Hits
better.
The light.
Sorry, hit the lights. So much better. So there you go.
What do you think hits the light wouldn't? What does that mean?
You know, you get on a stool, you swat the light because it's gone out, you hit it, and the light comes back on. Your power goes out.
Sounds very intimidating.
I'm calling it hits the light for now on.
That's a way better name.
I'm imagining this guy one day headlining WrestleMania, winning the title. 1, 2, 3. He's won it. Hit the lights. 1, 2, 3. New champion. Hit the lights.
Or maybe it's because he's so tall he walks into lights that are just hanging on the ceiling.
Well, he looks like a guy that would wasn't his gimmick like he was like a bouncer. So maybe he's on last
Bouncing
call
lights?
and he's hey, before you lock up, hit the lights.
That makes perfect sense.
Don't forget to hit the lights on the way out.
Yeah.
So instead of reckoning, we have hit the lights.
You know, on the one hand, it's great seeing Damian Priest make such a good transition to the main roster. They are putting him in a very great role. But on the other hand, man, him adopting this WWE style of like posing before every move makes him feel so much less realistic as a wrestler. But it does give him like whatever, like it's Hulk Hogan. Like they give him like the Hulk Hogan textbook, you know. It gives him a bigger presence. I imagine it'll translate to, I don't know, more kids liking his wrestling. And more importantly, I would say I think it indicates that they care enough about him to coach him to try to fit this ideal. I didn't think this match was that great. As I've said, I think the Bad Bunny stuff is starting to verge on like pretty go away, like a lot of go away heat for me at this point. But overall, it's still making him a bigger star.
I don't think he needs to be there every week. I think that you're kind of just like there's that desire that the company has of we've got someone, he's available, and we're just going to make them part of the show every week, and they lose kind of the whole point that you brought them in is because of this specialness that comes with them. And by WrestleMania, like the idea should be it feels special, and I just think having them every week on the show, I don't know if you're really enhancing things.
Yeah, especially if you don't have much for him to do, but to be
It's like Sting. It's like Sting on on AEW every week. Like, if there isn't that exact reason to have him there, well, then he's just becoming another person on the show, and you're losing that specialness. 24/7 guys run down. Priest fights them off. So now he basically is playing bodyguard for Bad Bunny, and Bad Bunny dumps Drew Gulak to the floor.
Like, to me, it just makes this Bad Bunny look like such a coward, hiding behind this tall guy. But, I mean, maybe the novelty is just seeing his face.
Will they be able to help themselves with the fact that the go-home edition of Raw for WrestleMania will be on Easter with Bad Bunny?
Wow. That's really up to him and his PR people.
Randy Orton cuts a promo. I had totally forgotten about this segment. Like, I watched it and I just instantly flushed it out of existence.
You spat it out.
I did something with it, yes. Randy Orton says that failure is not a word he's familiar with. He's a how many time champion? Like double digits.
14, something like that? 15?
That's a lot of failures in there.
Well, it depends how you define failure.
Well, I guess he's got a different definition of it. He has. What about multiple wellness suspensions?
Those are definitely failures. Yeah. Again, maybe he has a different definition.
Okay, because he's literally had failures in the company. He says he has lost the gauntlet match last week, then lost at Elimination Chamber. He said the Fiend was a distraction to me prior, so I lit him on fire. He's no longer a distraction, and he's not coming back. I'm not distracted by the Fiend. I'm distracted by Alexa Bliss. And as he's cutting this promo, he subtly coughs, and it's very, for all the promos we watch in WWE, never do you get someone choked up or coughing. So it was very notable.
You'll get wrong lines. You'll get, maybe stutters often, but nobody ever coughs.
No, this is a cough-free company. So they show footage of Alexa Bliss taunting Randy over the last few weeks, and we come back, and dude, black tar is ripping out of Randy Orton's throat, and he's just, cameraman not turned off by this at all. He's getting his frame perfect centered, and the highlight of Raw was cut to the announcers. Byron, I don't know what we just saw. What was that? And then Tom Phillips, we're going to do our best to move on. We've got Charlotte Flair and Asuka coming up. A man's just fucking coughed up black shit backstage and might be dying, but we've got a tag match still to come, and Jeff Hardy and Sheamus and Dana Brooks back with
To
Mandy.
be fair, they saw a man lit on fire. These people have seen a whole lot. So this kind
So why didn't they say that? Why didn't they just come back please? This is child's play. He's fine. Saw a man lit on fire, for Christ's sake. Dude, yeah. Randy Orton, I'll just say this. I will challenge, what would this man say no to at this stage in his career? Dude, he's just got his feet up. He's happy to be here.
Oh, sure. He'll do anything. He'll light people on fire. He'll spit tar out of his mouth.
This is a man that is secure in his position.
Yeah. I love this thing. This just reminded me of the Ultimate Warrior and Papa Shango story. And
which was huge at the time. I mean, it was just turnaround. There was pre and post Papa Shango Ultimate Warrior.
I imagine if I was in my 30s watching that at that time, I would have hated it. But I was, how old was I? I was probably 8, 7. That shit sticks with me till now.
This shit stuck with Randy Orton, literally. This is from his, insides.
Well, there are moments of this feud that are so ridiculous that I just can't help but just be bravo, great! I can't believe you went there and you did. And I admire that. And this was one of those, like, Randy Orton committed completely to this thing. I love the subtle coughing. And when the black tar came out, it was just like he put his all into this black tar.
I do look forward to the follow-up. I mean, this does not warrant a destroyer mask, but maybe he's lost his voice. Maybe he can't talk anymore. Maybe he'll be a mute.
Oh, who knows?
Maybe he will have turned into a viper, like that tar turns into a tongue.
Oh, like a buzzard versus a viper.
Maybe that's WrestleMania.
They're
animal forms. Match. Yes. That's the next level. We move on because, folks, we got to move on. We have a live show here. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler against Asuka and Charlotte Flair. They had the heat on Asuka for a long time. There was a sunset bomb to Nia Jax that I think she was supposed to hit the turnbuckle, but came up way short. They worked over Charlotte's knee. So when she finally tried to set up for the figure 8, the knee gave out and she could not get it. And therefore it was hit with a Nia Jax leg drop. Big comeback by Asuka after she gets the hot tag. The armbar to Nia gets stopped by Shayna. And as she goes for the Asuka lock, Shayna's fighting it. Charlotte runs for a boot and misses Baszler and nails Asuka with the boot. And then Nia hits Asuka with the leg drop of doom and pins her in 12 minutes and 20 seconds. I will say this, at the end of this was a finish where the tag team champions won. And by the end of it, you want to see Asuka and Charlotte because that's what the finish drove you towards. As much as we could have used a champagne bottle or a manager on the floor. Maybe Akira Tozawa could have come out with nunchucks and passed them to Charlotte, who didn't want to use them, and that led to Asuka being pinned. But no, instead they went this direction.
I'm sure, like, if WrestleMania was next month, I feel like they would have done that finish for Belair versus Sasha, but they do have Fastlane. They have 7 weeks to go till WrestleMania, so they need to fill that time with whatever they're trying to do with Reginald. I think they're just pacing that Belair-Sasha feud a little bit slower. You know, with Asuka and Charlotte, there's really kind of no telling how the timeline would have changed if Lacey was still active. I imagine that would have still carried its way over to this week, but them getting this match against Nia and Shayna seemingly from out of nowhere, to me, just seemed like a quick way to pivot to Asuka and Charlotte directly and basically kind of writing off this Ric Flair Lacey thing.
Maybe they're moving on because I felt just watching it that you do Charlotte and Lacey at Fastlane, and then you do get to Charlotte and Asuka at WrestleMania, and it feels like maybe they're pushing things up. And does Rhea Ripley then come into the picture?
And yeah, interesting.
So we'll see if they do Charlotte and Asuka at Fastlane. I mean, the fact they shot this angle to this degree now, this feels more like a Fastlane timeline than a WrestleMania angle that you're kicking off now. I mean, it's possible they could do
appropriate for the name of the show.
Perfect for this this program. Let's get it out of the way now. So Asuka's upset with Charlotte, and Charlotte just is not really trying to console her. She's like, F off, I'm leaving. Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus. A match. Sheamus is dominating him. I don't know. It's like Jeff Hardy just feels like, he's got his place on the show. It's,
he's just a guy who's not being focused on, who's there to serve up other guys. You know, he's a Ricochet right now.
Sheamus got his knees up on a splash. Then Hardy went for another one off the turnbuckle. Sheamus boots him out of the corner. And then a twist of fate is hit to Sheamus. Again, the knees give out as Hardy has had a knee injury for about 5 years now in storyline. Ducks a brogue kick, hit with a knee, hit with the brogue kick, and Sheamus wins in 12 minutes and 16 seconds. And we'll see what happens with Sheamus, because looking at the current scorecard, this is a man who gave up a 20-year friendship. Why? Because of the title. And he ended up getting into the chamber. He would have already gotten in. He's a former champion. He would have gotten in. So all I'm going to say is that when you decide one day way to stab me in the back, just make sure that I've still got the title, that you're going to get what it's worth it. Because right now, Sheamus, kind of like, man, you tossed away a friendship. I mean, for nothing.
I'll be sure to wait until closer to some sort of big event or pay-per-view till the card's out before I make any moves.
Get it in writing, because being on camera is not enough.
Mhm.
Get it in multiple signatures.
This was a tough match to get into, not because it was a bad match or anything, but because I've seen this match so many times recently and maybe even further in my lifetime that I just, you're telling me in the third hour of Raw with no storyline attached, no motivation for either guy to win, Sheamus versus Jeff Hardy. It was difficult. But I definitely think that you'll get a Sheamus and Drew singles match at some point, likely on Raw. Like it's a worthy Raw main event just to heat Drew back up before Fastlane.
I was hoping that at least at the end of this, Sheamus would get on the mic and say, "By the way, I was the driver that framed you."
Oh, wait,
that
was Elias. Oh yeah, you're right.
Hit Elias.
Yes.
But the redhead was never revealed.
He should have said that.
Still at large.
Now that he's a heel, he can admit it.
Okay, then we had this segment. Backstage, Charlotte Flair is nearly in tears already with Rick. "I can't do this crap anymore." Probably a true statement. "I can't focus due to Lacey Evans. You dancing, having the audacity, whether you thought it was funny or not, to pretend the baby was yours or not. I'm here to protect our last name and our legacy. That's what I'm doing. Go home." Rick says, "I never said the baby was mine." He saw potential in Lacey. Charlotte says, "You see a lot of potential in blondes. Dad, she's a coworker." Rick tells Charlotte that she became a champion on her own, but I like to think I had a small part. How about the tough love? I just wanted the best for you. At this part in the promo, all I'm visualizing is a couple of weeks ago when Ric Flair was watching as Lacey was ramming Charlotte's head into a locker.
Tough love, man.
I guess so. Here's a concussion. He was expanding the brand. He wants to be the man behind the Raw women's title and wants the women to be the biggest part of the market. Charlotte says it's time for her to prove who she is and not be Ric Flair's daughter. You still want to be the nature boy even on my time. So go home. And she's thankful for the doors that Rick has opened, but let me be Charlotte Flair. I love you. If anybody can explain this storyline to me, you will be a greater reviewer than me. Someone is going to watch this promo in a vacuum and feel, wow, this was like great stuff. Dude, I have no earthly idea what's going on. And all I can envision is that they wanted to make it crystal clear that Ric Flair is not the father, and we are moving on. And we needed 6 minutes to do it in a very strange fashion.
Yeah, they seem to really be afraid of like people thinking that they're somehow selling this idea that Ric Flair and Lacey Evans were, having some sort of sexual relationship. So much so that I felt like they were working overtime to explain it away here. It just kind of begs the question of why they introduced it in the first place. I definitely think if you watch this segment in the vacuum, it might have been a good emotional performance from Charlotte, but in the context of this terrible storyline, the weird tonal shift that you had in this particular segment, I think just kind of made her performance feel really melodramatic and insincere. I'm hoping this is just their way of wrapping this thing up because I thought it was doomed from the beginning when Flair tripped Charlotte like very deliberately when he wasn't supposed to. It's just been an awful story.
A very strange story. So that feels like the end of it with Rick. Like, I don't know what you continue with this. You don't have someone for him to be paired with. I feel like this was the write-off of Rick.
I feel like there are still great ways to use Ric Flair, but this was not one of them.
Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke took on Naomi and Lana. Lana took out Dana in the corner. They did a double team facebuster, and Naomi pinned Mandy Rose in 1:37, and they did remind you that they do get a future title shot.
Great.
AJ Styles versus Ricochet. Why? Because Styles kicks out his knee in the corner. Ricochet fired back with strikes. They were trying to play up the aggression of Ricochet. And then AJ tries to bounce Ricochet off the top into the Styles Clash like he beat him several weeks back. And it stopped with a head scissors. The recoil gets stopped, and AJ drills Ricochet with this knee to the face and hits the Styles Clash. 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Not very long. I mean, these two are really great together. It's just very short. No reason for it, but I'll take it this late in the show. And then Omos lifted Ricochet for a big tree slam, and maybe that'll be our first match. Ricochet and Omos together.
Oh, okay. Probably wouldn't go that long. Just a rehab match for AJ after losing last night, but it's a AJ and Ricochet match that I won't remember.
Wide open slate for AJ of whatever you do with him these next 2 months.
Yeah.
Miz and Morrison are pondering the main event. Either outcome is bad. Then Strowman scared them away. Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley. Miz comes out for commentary. Miz notes he made the deal before he was champion with Lashley, and they need to earn the right to face him. He suggests a big tournament, and the winner faces him at WrestleMania. Strowman just dumps Lashley to the floor, then runs into the steps. Lashley comes back. He's going for the hurt lock, but Braun is too big, so he nails him with a clothesline. Braun hits him with the clothesline, and in a power slam, Lashley kicks out. Everyone is stunned that he kicks out of the power slam, and Lashley fights back, hits the almighty spinebuster, and spears Braun for the win in 4 minutes and 19 seconds. They did not let this one drag. Just two big power men delivering big maneuvers to one another, and that sets up the Miz versus Bobby Lashley for next week.
I thought, if you're going to maybe give a week to really promote this Miz-Lashley match, I thought this was a decent way of delaying it by, using Braun Strowman. I thought the match they had was pretty entertaining Goldberg-Lesnar style of heavyweight sprint. And I think the length of this maybe explains the need for all that filler in the third hour. I feel like they will tease the title switch for next week on Raw, but I think that's when we see Drew McIntyre return, and we probably end up getting some sort of three-way at Fastlane.
That was my thinking. They purposely kept Drew off this show, and I think next week you tease that there's no way for Miz to retain this title, and Drew returns to get his revenge on Lashley, and you can spin it out however you want. I think that's going to be the appeal. Everyone knows Miz is losing this title, and it's going to come up with ways that he escapes with the title before he finally has to drop it. And probably next week is the first way he escapes with the title. Afterwards, they attack Braun's knee. He applies the hurt lock, and then Miz runs in for a belt shot, but he gets stopped and nailed with a spear. And that's how we go off, with MVP taking off his chain and reading the last rites or something to Miz.
Cool.
Yeah. That was Raw.
Yeah. Man, I thought this was a really slow show that felt painfully stretched to fill its 3 hours. I think there's a lack of star power that was felt, and I don't even know how many people were missing other than Drew and I guess Keith Lee. But man, it just did not feel like a very important show other than the bookending segment. A lot of matches that took place with no build or stakes attached. You could really just watch this whole thing in 10 minutes if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of filler on the show, and I mean, the thing that's largely keeping the show together is this Miz title reign. I mean, that is the overarching story, and I don't know how compelled people are by it. And then it's the women's title scene is your secondary story on the show, and then it's a lot of stuff that's just filling up time. That's what tonight's show was. I think they really burned through the post pay-per-view momentum fairly quick on tonight's show, and even if you're putting together your Raw side of WrestleMania programs that seem wide open this year, like, I don't know how much inspiring stuff there really is. Like, if you're making up like your parts that you have on Raw and not going elsewhere, like you could do interpromotional matches, I guess. It's just what you have on the table. I don't know. You really need some great ideas, I think, to spruce up some of these pairings.
Well, I think Rhea Ripley will really help that title picture if they bring her in there. At this point, I really think that would be the best idea rather than Charlotte Asuka again. I'm trying to think who else they could really use. I mean, Lashley and Drew, I think by the time they get there, will be a pretty decently hot match, especially with like MVP doing a lot of that talking.
Riddle. What do you do with Riddle?
Yeah, I mean...
Keith Lee?
Keith Lee, perhaps, yeah. Trying to think what other names you have. You know, Sheamus is kind of in that mix.
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, it seems really thin, at least compared to SmackDown, that I feel like has so much more potential. But we still have 7 weeks, so let's see. Let's go to the forum here, John.
We start off with the poll. Tonight's show got a 5.24 from the forum. And Kate starts things off. South Park did an episode where they showed how Family Guy was written by manatees choosing random balls with plot ideas on them, and sometimes I think that Raw is written the same way. I thought that the show started off strong with the Miz MVP Lashley confrontation, and there was a very clear story presented. Then we had Braun and Adam Pearce and Shane McMahon, and now everything is all mucked up and somehow less interesting. Rather than fiddling with the Lashley-Miz storyline, they should be trying to find something for Asuka to do, like getting her a competitor who's on her level. Or they could be coming up with ideas for Riddle to defend his new title so that it starts to seem relevant again. Or trying to figure out how they're going to undo the long-term damage they've caused to the careers of everyone in Retribution. Surprisingly, considering how dire the story has been, one of the better things on tonight's show was the Rick and Charlotte segment. You see potential in a lot of blondes was a harder hit than if she just kicked him in the head.
That was a good line. We got Andrew from Cape Breton who says, when I first got the internet back in the early 2000s, one of my favorite websites was WrestleCrap.com. Their podcast from 2005 was the very first podcast I ever listened to. One of the classic articles was about Papa Shango and his angle with the Ultimate Warrior. It was an infamous angle from a bygone era of one of the down periods creatively of WWE. So, with that said, I guess Black Goo is the signal that we are witnessing one of the worst angles ever. Papa Shango's reign of terror ended in 92 because Bret Hart simply didn't believe in Shango's voodoo and was able to defeat him. Shango was an undercard act until leaving the company after that. I can only hope for a modern day Bret Hart to just kill off this fiend gimmick so it can never be seen again. The main positive of the show is Bobby Lashley and hopefully getting a new main event player on Raw, a show that desperately needs him. They just need people to win matches to win titles. Asuka's lost so much that if she wasn't the champion, she would no doubt be number one contender. 4 out of 10 show.
All right. There we have it. That is Raw. Exciting.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your feedback. Thank you everybody for joining us in the Zoom. Double patrons have access live every Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, pay-per-views for all of our post shows. All patrons have access on Fridays, so hope you guys join us for one of those. If not, just listen the way you do right now.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in live or downloading the show. We're going to be back on Tuesday with our review of Rocky Balboa from 2006. I'm looking forward to that one. You can still throw up feedback if you would like to for that. And then Wednesday night, we're live at 10:15 Eastern for our Double Plus members of the Post Wrestling Cafe after Dynamite. So we will speak with you all then. Goodbye.